Hey everyone, welcome to Sketch Day. I'm back. I know it's been a while, but this is really exciting news and I thought I had to come back on and talk about it. Apple just released their new iPad 6. I've got one here. I've also got my 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and I'm just going to do a comparison. I've been living with the 9.7 iPad 6 for about a week now, and I wanted to give an artist slash designer perspective on both products. This is unreal, really exciting. So we'll get into it. And also, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Reach out to me at email or Instagram at sketchaday.com. I've recently left Facebook behind. So if you want to reach out to me, Instagram's your best bet, or commenting on the YouTube video. So without further ado, let's get started. So like I said, I spent about a week with both devices, and I haven't quite tested everything, but I've tested enough with regards to what matters for artists. Now, this isn't going to be a technical rundown or a speeds and feeds comparison. Really, I'm just talking about the qualitative differences between both devices that'll make a difference to artists. So let's start with price. Now, most artists don't have a ton of money to spend. So first of all, this is the 32 gigabyte version of the 9.7-inch iPad. I've got to resist saying Pro of the iPad. Works with the Apple Pencil. This is actually an old pencil from another iPad Pro that I had, and it works just fine with this device. So I can do all the things that I would typically do with my pencil. It has tilt responsiveness, pressure sensitivity, all of that. Awesome. The iPad Pro is a much more expensive device. As you'll see here, it's bigger. It's got a 12.9-inch screen. It's about the size of a sheet of paper, a letter size paper, A4, I guess, if you're not inside the United States. And so it's a bit more comfortable to draw on, especially if you're used to drawing with your shoulder. So you'll appreciate the screen size difference. However, as an artist, what you may not appreciate is the price difference. The iPad Pro, according to Apple's website here, I've got my cheat sheet up. It starts at $799 for the 64 gigabyte version versus the iPad 6, which starts at $329. Now, full disclosure, whatever, Apple has not paid me for this review. I went ahead and bought my own 9.7-inch iPad so that I could play with it and see what it's like and give you guys my unbiased feedback. Meaning, Apple isn't here saying, hey, put this in a favorable light or whatever. I just went ahead and bought my own device. So $329, 32 gigabytes, 64 gigabytes is where the iPad Pro starts and goes all the way up to 512. This iPad 6 will only go up to 128. Well, what's the big difference? For me, I use my iPad Pro. We'll just start with storage. I use my iPad Pro for a lot of things. I type, I draw, I watch movies, I collect photos, curate, edit, all of that. So when I bought my iPad Pro, I went into it knowing that I'm going to use this device a lot. Now, I went ahead and got the 512 gigabyte version, and I'm just pulling up my settings here so that I can tell you how much I'm actually using, despite using this thing for everyday sketching, for sketching on the go, for paintings, all sorts of stuff. I've made enough money from this device to pay for it, so I'm covered. But let's take a look at how much storage I'm actually using. This is a 512 gigabyte iPad, and I'm only using 71 gigabytes. Mind you, I have tons of sketches here in Procreate, and you can see, right, there's a lot of stuff in here. And still, I've only used, and a lot of these are stacks as well, meaning lots of drawings grouped together. I've only used 71 gigabytes. So really, I probably only needed the 128 gigabyte version, or, maybe even the 256 gigabyte version. I'm barely scratching the surface. So this is interesting. I hadn't quite checked to see how much I've been using. So buck for buck, dollar for dollar, it seems like the better choice might have been the iPad 6. Now, it didn't exist when I bought the iPad Pro 12.9, and I do appreciate the bigger size for drawing. So there's my trade-off. But looks like I could have gotten a little bit of less storage. Now, the displays are, I guess, fundamentally different between both devices. Now, for the average user, someone who's watching Netflix or creating a document or whatever, you just scribbles, you are totally fine. You don't need an iPad Pro. This thing hums. It's thin, it's light, awesome battery life. In fact, you can expect the same level of battery life that you would from any iPad device. In other words, I haven't run specific numerical tests for the battery life, but from a qualitative point of view, it lasts me all day. I don't have to worry about constantly plugging in this device and charging. If it's in standby mode, it'll last up to a month. All those things that you've come to know and expect from an iPad, they're there. However, one thing that's different, well, not one thing, we'll talk about both displays. So let's start with the iPad 6. The display on the iPad 6 here is not a true tone display. Now that's Apple's branding for a technology that uses the camera as a light sensor to evaluate the color of the light in the room that you're in. So if you're in a room with warm light, the display will adjust to be neutral to the lighting of the room. Or if you're outside or in a room with more of a cool tone, the display will also respond and adapt. It's really hard to show on camera, so I can't really show you here necessarily. Well, maybe, let's see. I'd have to pull up something white, I think. So let's just make a new file and look at the white on both of these iPads. And you can see, well, like I said, it's hard to see on camera, but I can see it here. There's a difference between the white on my 12.9-inch iPad Pro and the white on my 9.7-inch iPad. Now, does it make a difference? You tell me. I mean, as an artist, I would suggest try both out, and if it really doesn't bother you, save the money. Go for the 9.7, especially if you don't need the bigger size product, because you're going to be saving hundreds of dollars. Now, I've been doing drawing for a long time, pen, paper, all of it, digital products, different digital products, and this is the first time I've seen anything like this. Combination of decent computing speed. In fact, Apple actually put the A10 processor, not the A10X that you find in the iPhone 10 and iPad Pro, but the A10 processor, which is, I mean, awesome. I tried putting Procreate, which is the app that I use, through its paces on both devices, and surprisingly, despite the difference in RAM, I believe the iPad Pro is either 3 or 4 gigs of RAM. The iPad 6 has about 2 gigs of RAM, and despite that difference, both devices seem to keep up. So I don't think it's a factor of RAM, particularly in Procreate. You'll notice that if I go to create a new document here, so create a new document and I create a custom size, I tried to put together the biggest size I've worked with on my iPad Pro to date, which is 7200 pixels by 4800 pixels at 300 dpi. And both devices gave me the same limitation. Let's see if you can see that. In terms of maximum layers. Here, maximum layers for this file on my iPad 6 is 11 layers. Same thing on my iPad Pro. I was really surprised because, again, the cost difference. I paid around $1,400, $1,200 to $1,400 for the entire setup for my iPad Pro. Again, for me, totally worth it, but for a student or an artist on a budget or someone who's just curious and you want to be creative, on the go, and expressive, oh, this is a great deal. Really great deal. A couple other differences with the screen that I'll touch on. Let's go back here. There's an air gap between the pencil, I almost said stylus, between the pencil and what you're seeing on the display. Now, again, this is this is a small thing. It's something that you can compensate for as you practice and draw with your iPad, something you get used to. The iPad Pro here, the 12.9 inch, it has what's called a laminated display. So as I'm drawing it, it looks like I'm drawing right on the screen. But that air gap is so small. Again, you can adjust to it. The question is it worth $300 or $400 to upgrade to the Pro? Size really seems to be the big factor here, because this device looks great, meaning the iPad 6 looks awesome, works decently. I even just did a quick car sketch here. There was no lag or slowdown that was annoying, noticeable for me as an artist and someone who's used to the Pro, but nothing that would make me think, oh, this is completely worthless. Why am I wasting my time here? So, doesn't look like there's a huge difference. The speakers are different on the device. So, the iPad 6 just has stereo speakers on the bottom, whereas the iPad Pro here has speakers on all four corners. And what that means is, if you're someone like me who also likes to watch Netflix or listen to music while you're drawing, the music will sound better on the iPad Pro than it will on this iPad 6. However, if you've got other options for music, again, why spend the money on a Pro? I think the Pro is really becoming more of a niche thing, especially with the introduction of the pencil on the iPad 6. So that's something to consider. One major difference between two devices, however, is the smart connector. Now, as far as I know, and I could be totally wrong here, the most useful, meaningful, device, accessory that fits onto this smart connector, and by smart connector, I mean the three little circles you see on the bottom of not the bottom, the side of an iPad Pro, are to connect this Apple smart keyboard. So now I can fold this out, and it's a little bit clunky when you first do it, but I can fold it out, and essentially I have kind of a laptop style setup where I can now type and take notes or whatever. I would never draw in this orientation, but it's kind of nice on an airplane or if you're just watching Netflix or whatever. But again, is that worth the extra money for you? They make stands and cases for regular iPads as well. Now, compared to I don't have a 10.1 inch iPad Pro, but I did go check it out. There's a couple other differences. The screen obviously is smaller. You've got more of a bezel on the sides of this iPad 6 than you do on the 10.1 inch Pro. But again, is it worth it? Probably not. So as an artist, I see this device, the iPad 6, being a killer tool in your toolbox. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for years. This is the most bang for buck I've seen out of any tool geared for artists. Meaning, hey, this is a computer, and you can argue, a computer has PCI boards and I can swap them out and whatever, and big old honking power supply. Okay, to you, whatever, that's fine. What I'm saying is, with this device, I can actually get real work done, make real money as an artist, and this thing fits in my backpack. It lasts all day. The battery life's amazing. It connects to the internet. Like, we live in an amazing time. So I'm really excited about this device from Apple. Now, the question is, which one should I buy? I also spent a lot of money on my iPad Pro because I wanted the cellular connectivity so that I can really travel. I love traveling. Connect to the internet, get work done. I'm looking at my cheat sheet again. Okay, looks like this one does come with cellular if you want it. So if you wanted to get the 128 gig, which is probably what I would recommend, especially if you're creating a lot of stuff or downloading videos. Like I said, you don't need the 512, as I've discovered. You don't need that, and it's probably harder to resell anyways. You're probably good with 128 to 256 gigabytes of memory or storage on the device. All that extra space, storage, yeah, it's great, but currently the apps that are available for the iPad Pro, they don't take up a ton of room. As you can see, the files don't take up a ton of room as well. So, anticipating that if you are going to use this a lot, maybe spring for the extra storage. If you want the cellular connectivity, you could do that as well. And what's even better is, as a student, if you buy this device, it's even cheaper. It's $30 cheaper. So now you're looking at $300 for a computer, something that can get you real work done on the go. And now it can't do 3D programs very well, and there's a few other things, but simple movie editing, simple photo editing, content creation using things like Procreate or Adobe Draw or Sketch. Pretty amazing. The full iWork suite, I guess, that you have for the iPad. I've taken many notes, created documents, I've created presentations. I've done a lot of stuff on this iPad Pro, and a lot of these things you can do on the iPad 6 as well. So, which one should you buy? It's really up to you. I love my iPad Pro, particularly for the size. I love the True Tone display. I love that it adapts to the environment I'm in, so I don't have to think about it. The other thing I forgot to mention is the iPad Pro here. Sorry, my beanie's sliding off my head. The iPad Pro here also will have a wider color gamut. That just means it's able to display in HDR your videos, as well as give you a more realistic representation of what you're creating, what you're painting. So if you're doing lots of subtle color shading variations, that becomes an important feature. But for gross sketching, especially just black and white doodles, sketching, quick ideation, if you will, from an industrial design perspective, the iPad 6 is totally enough. If size is a consideration, then I would push you more to the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, because that's going to give you more room to kind of draw with your shoulder and be expressive and so forth. I'm not going to do an actual sketch on the device today, but like I said, I did go ahead and kind of doodled a car here so you can see. Oh, and now that I'm showing the car on screen, there is one more important difference between both iPad devices. The iPad 6, okay, it comes with an oleophobic coating, meaning it resists the oils on your hands and so on as you touch the device. It is a touchscreen device after all. It makes it easier to clean. However, it lacks the anti-glare coating. There's an easy fix though, and this is something I do to every iPad device I have where I'm drawing, is grab a matte screen protector. I'll put a link below for some matte screen protectors. It's a question I get a lot. Hey, what protector are you putting on your device? Just a simple, thin plastic matte screen protector will give your iPad a little bit of tooth. So what that's going to do, and by tooth I mean kind of a texture. See, we got it going on here. Just a little texture so that when you draw, it feels more like paper. I haven't noticed any significant negative side effects to doing this. The pencil works great, works the same. The tip, I've bought a few pencils now because I've lost them, but I haven't noticed any degradation of the tip that impacts the performance negatively. So put a matte screen protector on. That's going to take care of the anti-glare. Again, is anti-glare coating worth a couple $100? Probably not. Save your money. And if you don't care about the True Tone display and a few other things like I mentioned, this thing's gonna rock. This thing will get it done for you. Particularly as a student, this is awesome. It really is incredible that they've done this. To me, this is the dream device. Something small, compact. You can throw it in a backpack. I can draw. Battery life lasts forever. I can connect to the internet, I can record video, I can take photos. A couple other small differences I forgot to mention. The iPad Pro here, the 12-inch, the camera is better, has a wider aperture as well. So it'll stop down to, I think, 1.8 or 1.2, something like that. And it's a 12 megapixel sensor. So if you're like me and sometimes you sketch on paper, take a snapshot to scan it into your iPad, you may notice a small difference, but I mean, 12 megapixels, again, is it worth the hundreds of dollars to upgrade? Probably not. I love the smart connector though. I love the keyboard stand, so that's something I like, and you know, to me it's worth it. And I'm not saying I have buyer's remorse or anything like that, because like I said, for me, an iPad Pro or iPad has become an essential part of my workflow, and most of my sketching, if not all, I at some point will take into the iPad to finish up or start. There's just a couple things that are lacking in both devices, really, and I can talk about those. If you're a laptop or a PC user and you're used to using more professional tools. Really, that's on the app makers, not so much on Apple, right? They created a tool. It does have its limitations, but it would be awesome if like Adobe could have a version of Photoshop and a more powerful vector drawing tool for this device, or something like Sketch. And maybe I'm speaking out of turn if you're a UI UX designer. I don't know. I'm not as familiar with Sketch on these devices, but hey, if it exists, awesome, because then I can get some more real work done and not have to be so reliant on my laptop or desktop. CAD programs in particular, if you're an industrial designer, they're not as robust on the iPad Pro. I'd love to see something like Keyshot or some other rendering tool, so that if I do at least have the CAD data already prepared, I could pull it onto my iPad Pro and get some quick renderings done for presentation purposes, and then maybe sketch over those renderings. That would be awesome. But that being said, for a device that costs $329, or, and I'm going to check my cheat sheet here again, or starts at $799, that's a big deal for the 12.9 inch anyways. The 10.5 inch iPad Pro is $649 for twice the storage and those other features. As a student, I have a hard time justifying spending more money, but as a professional, I think you'll appreciate the subtle differences, particularly if you do draw a lot, if you spend a lot of time on these devices. Those small differences will become big things over time for you. So that's my take on both devices. I'm not going to tell you which one to buy, but depending on where you are in life and your flexibility, you may find that one of these fits you a bit better. But it's really incredible to me that there is something that exists that is this price point. And I won't name competitors, but it's been a while since I've used competitor devices, because this just does the job well. I can't speak for how well a job it does outside of the Apple ecosystem, because as you can see, I have my Apple monitor and laptop here. I'm kind of an Apple guy. And in the past, I've used other devices. It's just kind of clunky, kludgy. I have to, have all these accessory things and connect and special devices. But if you're in the ecosystem, it makes sense. I can draw something on my iPad. I can shoot it over to my laptop really easily. With the improvements in iOS 11, particularly with files, it makes file management a little bit easier. There's some things they could do differently, do better, that would help. But all in all, two great devices. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to post below. Like I said, I'll post links to the few things I've talked about here. Oh, I forgot to mention, despite the starting cost of both devices. So again, I purchased the 512, which is $1149 iPad Pro. That's the starting price. On top of that, I had to buy the Smart Keyboard and the Apple Pencil. So Smart Keyboard I think is $149 or $129, and the Pencil is another $99. So on top of that, I'm spending $250 plus. So that's how I end up with around $1,400 with tax and all, Apple Care and all that. Again, is it worth it? To me, yes, because I've already paid for this device several times over. But as a student, understand that even though you buy this for $299, you are going to have to spend another probably $100 plus. You've got some, screen protector thing to put on, maybe a case, that kind of thing. So anticipate spending about $150 extra to get started drawing. But that being said, $299 plus $99. So you're looking at about $400 for an awesome drawing tool that is not just a drawing tool. You can do a lot with this device. So that's my take on the iPad Pro versus the iPad 6. I hope this video has been helpful. If you want to see more of the devices, just let me know in the comments. I'm happy to do a follow-up video that talks more about the features. But all in all, if you're trying to decide, it really just comes down to price and how often are you going to use the device and how do you like to work? Because the size in this case, to me, does make a big enough difference to push me that way. But as I talked about, the storage may not be as important, cellular connectivity, the screen. You just have to kind of try it out, decide for yourself. Well, thanks for joining me here on Sketch A Day. This has been really fun. I've had a great time with both these devices. Again, if you have questions and so on, just leave them below. I'll be back with more videos soon. Sorry about the delay there, but I'm back. So feel free to reach out on Instagram. I'm at sketchaday.com, or you can shoot me an email or just leave a comment. And thanks again. We'll see you next time right here on Sketchaday.